Hello, welcome to Voices of British Orthodoxy. I am Rita Lazar. Hope you all had a blessed ascension. Today's the 16th of May, as according to the old calendar. We have three saints in the book, and there's one bonus saint, which is what I'm actually going to start off with today. So, the bonus saint, which I'd normally leave till last because we have some very long entries, is Saint Primiel of Quimper, and he's a hermit. Born in Britain, died in Quimper, c. 450. Saint Primiel, that's spelled Primael, crossed the Channel to Brittany when he became a hermit in Quimper. There one finds churches dedicated to his memory. And now we will get into the first entry from the book, which is Brendan the Voyager, 6th century. Actually, I'm gonna do the other two first because he has a prayer. So we have two saints today that are both called Saint Carantac / Tok. So, I guess the first one is Saint Carantac. Saint Carantac, spelt with a CK. Saint Carantac, a Welsh abbot, is credited with founding the Church of Llangrannog. There are several legends that connect the saint with Cornwall and Somerset in England, as well as Brittany. However, there is very little information to support these theories, and what does exist seems to be unreliable. So that was the first... that was the first entry for the first Saint Carantoc, which is from the book. And now I will read his longer entry, because he is from the 6th century, from the group chat. 6th century, a Welsh abbot, founder of the Church of Llangrannog, Cardiganshire, Wales. Saint Carantoc visited Ireland as a missionary, and on his return founded a monastery at Cernac, of which he was abbot. He led a group of monks who evangelized central Cornwall, and is said to have migrated from there to Brittany, where he is highly venerated as Saint Caradec. I might have butchered that pronunciation, but that's spelled Caredc. Before the end of his life, he returned to Cernac, where he died. William Worcester mentions Sanctus Caradocus, which means Cadoc or Carantoc, in a church or chapel near Padstow, where he was venerated because of his destroying worms when people drink the water of a well there. He is a patron of Carantoc in Cornwall, Llangrannog, and Carhampton in Somerset. Roscarrock mentions a Cornish church dedicated to Carantoc, which had 7 churchyards attached to it. Parishioners from these 7 churches came annually to bring relics to the mother church and place them on special stone-like altars. Our next saint is also called Saint Carantoc, but he's also sometimes called Saint Tarantog, Kaimak, or Carnath, and he is from the 5th century. I will start off with his entry in the book, which is Saint Carantac was a Welsh prince and a disciple of St. Patrick, who we commemorated back on the 17th of March, with whom he worked in the evangelization of Ireland in the 5th century. There are sources who consider Saint Carantac and Saint Carantog to have been 2 separate saints. However, there is insufficient information extant to support this opinion. The entry in the group chat is a lot shorter. Saint Carantoc Abbot, also known as Carantog and Cenach, 5th century, a Welsh prince who laboured under St. Patrick in the evangelization of Ireland. And this St. Carantoc has a Troparion in tone 7, which I will, of course, copy and paste for you all. And this is I only know of this because of the group chat. Anyway, Troparion of Saint Carantoc, the 5th century one, the Welsh prince, tone 7. Preferring to serve in the kingdom of God than to rule an earthly kingdom, O Father Carantoc. Thou didst convert many to Christ in Ireland, in thy native Wales and in Cornwall, where having cast out the dragon and founded many churches, thou wast a shining beacon guiding many souls into the way of salvation. Pray now to Christ our God that he will save our souls. And now we have the saint whose icon you can see on your screen. I did actually look for icons of the last two saints, but I couldn't find any. But there is plenty of icons, including a different icon that is in this book. Anyway, I will probably also write out his prayer for any of you that want to pray it, but let's start off. We will read his prayer last after we've read his Troparion. So, our venerable, which I will probably read after. I'll read the prayer after I've read his entry in the group chat, but now we're going to read his entry in here, in the book. Our venerable and God-bearing father, Brendan the Voyager, was an Irish monk, and perhaps the first first Orthodox Christian to set forth on North American soil. After founding several monasteries in Ireland, including the famous abbeys of Ardfert in County Kerry and Clonfert in County Galway, and offering a monastic rule remarkable for his austerity, he embarked upon numerous missionary and pastoral travels to Scotland, and perhaps to Wales. According to an anonymous Hiberno-Latin work, probably from the 9th century, called the Navigatio Sancti Brendani, St. Brendan, accompanied by a group of monks, sailed west to what many believe might very well have been North America. One of the questions as to the veracity of this story is whether a boat such as the one St. Brendan used would be capable of sailing from Ireland to North America. However, in 1976, British explorer Tim Sovereign built a replica of the boat St. Brendan would have used, and over 2 summers sailed from Ireland via the Hebrides, the Faroe Islands, and Iceland to Newfoundland to demonstrate that the saint's purported voyage was feasible. St. Brendan reposed circa AD 578 at Anardown, in Achaduin, in County Galway, and was buried in Clonfert Cathedral. He is venerated as the patron saint of sailors and numbered among the 12 apostles of Ireland. I will now read his entry from the group chat. St. Brendan of Ardfert and Clonfert, known also as St. Brendan the Voyager, was born in Ciarraighe space Luachra near the present city of Tralee, County Kerry, Ireland, in 484. He died at Enagduin, now Anagdown, in 577. He was baptized at Tubrin, near Ardfert, by Bishop Urk. The Wanderings of Ulysses, the story of St. Brendan voyaging over perilous waters, was a popular story in the Middle Ages. We see him only as a shadow in the old Celtic world, and who he was or where he came from is uncertain, though it is supposed that he was born the son of Findla near Tralee, on Fennet Peninsula in Kerry Island, of an ancient and noble bloodline. It is said that as a child he was committed to the care of St. Iter the Brigid of Munster, who is commemorated on the 15th of January, at Kilidi for 5 years, who introduced him to theology. She taught him 3 things that God really loves: true faith of a pure heart, the simple religious life, and bountifulness inspired by Christian charity. She would have added the 3 things God hates as a scowling face, obstinate wrongdoing, and too much confidence in money. When he was 6, he was sent to St. Jarlath's monastery. St. Jarlath is commemorated on June the 6th. Monastery school at Tuam for his education. He was also under the tutelage of Bishop St. Urk of Slane, who is commemorated on October 31st, who had baptized him, and in 512 ordained Brendan to the priesthood. Brendan was a contemporary of and disciple of St. Finian, who is commemorated on December the 12th, and later St. Gildas, commemorated on the 29th of January. At Llancarthan in Wales, and he later founded a monastery at St. Malo. Like his master, St. Jarlath, he is reputed to have founded churches in Britain and Wales, as well as schools and monasteries in Ireland, and after several settlements in Kerry, he sailed up the Shannon to found the famous monastery at Clonfert. Montagu reminds us even that if Brendan had never left the islands, he would have merited recognition as one of the great saints of Ireland. It is hard to pin down the chronology of his life. However, it seems that shortly after his ordination, Brendan became a monk and gathered a community of disciples around himself. Between the years 512 and 530, St. Brendan built monastic cells at Ardfert and at Shanakil, or Balynevinoorach. Sorry to any Irish people reading this. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that. At the foot of Brandon Hill. Brendan's connection to the foundation of Clonfert in Galway appeared about 559, appears certain. His biographers speak of his governing a community of 3,000 monks with a rule dictated to him by an angel. This foundation became the fountainhead of missionary activities for centuries. Saint Senan, who was commemorated back on the 8th of March, stood on his promontory on Scattery Island, and in one day counted 7 ships carrying students from overseas up to Shannon to Clonfert. Somehow Brendan is presumed to have left his brethren behind to begin his travels. Or did he found the monastery thereafter, is in brackets. Though Brendan was a real person, fabulous stories are told of his wanderings in search of unknown land, perhaps the Faroes, the Canaries, or the Azores. For 7 years he voyaged to find the promised land of the saints. On the Kerry coast, with 14 chosen monks, he built a coracle of wattle, covered it with hides tanned in oak bark softened with butter, and set up a mast and a sail, and after a prayer upon the shore, he embarked in the name of the Trinity to extend the kingdom of God on earth. With his 60 companions, he set sail with a month's provisions to seek the isle or land of the blessed, a remnant of ancient Celtic folklore. On board the ship, all the rules of monastic life were strictly observed. After strange wanderings that included celebrating the divine offering on the back of a whale, he returned to Ireland to found Clonfert. The old Irish calendars assigned a special feast for the Aggresso family S. Brendani on 22nd of March, and St. Angus the Caldy in his litany, at the close of the 8th century, invokes the 60 who accompanied St. Brendan in his quest of the land of promise. Naturally, the story of the 7 years' voyage was carried about, and soon crowds of pilgrims and students flocked to Ardfert. Thus, in a few years, many religious houses were formed at Gallerus, Kilmalcador, Brandon Hill, and the Blasquet Islands, in order to meet the wants of those who came for spiritual guidance to St. Brendan. Having established the see of Ardfert, Saint Brendan proceeded to Thomond and founded a monastery at Innis da Druin, now Coney Island, County Clare, in the present parish of Kiladysert, about the year 550. He then journeyed to Wales and thence to Ionia, and left traces of his apostolic zeal at Kilbrandon near Oban and Kilbrennan Sound. After a 3 years mission in Britain, he returned to Ireland and did much good in various parts of Leinster, especially at Dysart, County Kilkenny, Killiney, Tubberbow, and Brandon Hill. He founded the sees of Ardfert and of Anadown and established churches at Innichquin, County Galway, and at Inishglora, County Mayo. His most celebrated foundation was Clonfert in 557, over which he appointed Saint Moinhert as prior and headmaster. It is said that Columbus, to whom Brendan's story would have been familiar, may have been inspired by the saint's epic saga, Navigatio Sancti Brendani Abbatis, which had been translated into the major languages of Europe and was included in university curricula. Historians such as G.A. Little have stated that Columbus even visited Clonfert before setting out on his voyage to India, and that his crew included many Irishmen. Long before Columbus, the Irish monks were renowned as travellers and explorers. Tradition says that they reached Iceland and explored even farther afield in the Atlantic, perhaps as far as America. While the oldest extant version of the Navigatio was written in the 10th century, scholars agree that it is a 9th century Irish composition. Under the guise of an adventure tale, the anonymous author paints a detailed picture of the ideal monastic life. It was so well written that Dante drew upon its images in his Commedia. The story was so well accepted that cartographers, especially on the Iberian Peninsula, continued to include Brendan's Island at various places west of Ireland. Only in the mid-18th century was belief in the existence of the island abandoned. Scholars long doubt the voyage to the Promised Land described by Brendan could have been to North America, but some modern scholars now believe that he may have done just that. In 1976-77, Tim Severin, an expert on exploration following the instructions in the Navigatio, built a hide-covered Curragh and then sailed it from Ireland to Newfoundland via Iceland and Greenland, demonstrating the accuracy of its directions and descriptions of the places Brendan mentioned in his epic. William Verity of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, sailed round-trip between Florida and Ireland in 1969 to put the Brendan legend in working order. Even today, inscriptions in the Ogham script of Irish Gaelic found in Newfoundland and in the northeast of the United States are being studied on the assumption that they support the travels of Saint Brendan. Brendan himself stands out in a dark age as a captain of a Christian crew. Like the Greeks and Vikings, he had a craving for the sea, but he built his boat and launched it in the name of the Lord, and sailed it under the ensign of the cross. It is a thrilling saga, for all its strangeness, and set many a sailor's late to search in vain for St. Brendan's Island, but none ever found it, though it was said at times to be seen, like an isle of paradise, riding above the surface of the sea. Brendan probably died while visiting his sister Brigga, abbess of a convent at Anadown. His story, as it comes to us, includes his dying conversation with his sister. When he asked her to assist his death with her prayers, she asked why he was afraid of dying. He responded, "I am afraid of loneliness on this dark journey to the unknown land. I fear the presence of the king and the sentence of the judge, foreseeing that there might be rivalry for his body, Brendan requested that his death be kept a secret while his relics were returned by cart to Clonfert in the disguise of luggage being sent ahead for his own return. Today, all that is left of the once thriving Clonfert monastery is a single Hiberno-Romanesque door. I think what we just read might be our longest entry. Anyway, here is the Troparion of St. Brendan the Voyager in Tone 4. Obviously, I'm not going to sing it, I'm going to just read it for you, and then I will copy and paste it and the other one, and also write the prayer for you all. Anyway, here is the Troparion in Tone 4. The divine likeness has been perfected in thee, O Holy Father Brendan. For taking up the cross, thou hast followed Christ. And by thy deeds thou hast taught us to disdain the flesh, for it passes away, but to cultivate the soul, for it is immortal. But to cultivate the soul, for it is immortal. Wherefore, O Holy Father, thy spirit rejoices with the angels. And now I will read. Now I will read his prayer. Shall I abandon, O King of Mysteries, the soft comforts of home? Shall I turn my back on my native land, and turn my face towards the sea? Shall I put myself wholly at thy mercy, without silver, without a horse, without fame, without honour? O King of the glorious heaven, shall I go of my own choice upon the sea? O Christ, wilt thou help me on the wild waves? Prayer of St. Brendan the Voyager. May those saints intercede for us before the righteous judge. I hope you all have a great day. I think I can start mentioning this now. If you made it this far, I guess you do deserve to the first Saturday of July, I will have for a future episode when it is completed, maybe that will be tomorrow's episode, I will have a proper poster on the right side to promote this, but at my church, we're going to be celebrating the lives of the British saints, and the plan is to basically turn that into a yearly thing. So each year, I think from next year onwards, it'll probably be the final week of July, but this year it will be the first Saturday of July. So try and keep that date free. Details will be confirmed, as well as everything that will be done soon. May those saints intercede for us, and thank you all for watching our longest video yet. God bless you all, and Amen.